Have you heard much how like has anything come your way on like the combination? Like I know the province is kind of going towards like inquiry learning, and do you see that connecting, or do you see them as separate entities?
I think inquiry learning requires a lot of regulation, and there's not enough attention on that aspect of it.
Yeah.
Right? That like by doing that, you're giving students a lot of leeway in terms of like what they're learning and why they're doing it and all of that stuff, and it's not guided at all. And students are usually, I mean, even university students are just not in a place where they're able to really manage that. Mm-hmm. And so I think for that to be successful, there has to be a lot of support and a lot of kind of planning and thinking about what am I doing here? Why are we doing this? What are the goals? And some like really explicit monitoring along the way for that to happen. So yeah, I think inquiry learning.
Our students are terrible at it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a reason for it, right? Like I know my husband, his lit reviews on inquiry learning, and he's doing some stuff with his class, and he's like, they're terrible. Like I need what you're learning. Like there needs to be that connect. Like we've talked about, like can we combine what we're doing somehow to like create something to support inquiry learning?
Yes. Oh my God.
Like you said, the goals. Like you set a goal. Now you have independent study time. Like that can all combine right into that. Like
it's got to be those like really small, right? We're talking half an hour kind of things that you're monitoring. Am I learning this? Am I doing this? Right? And then kind of you can think from there. Okay, so what's the next step here? Right? But we often set these like big goals, like I need to finish this in 5 days or 10 days or whatever, right? And then there's no way to check in on that until 10 days are over.
Yeah, and some of them like finish it in 5 minutes because they don't really know that there's more to it than
exactly, right? So
a yes and no answer
into what I'm doing right now and how that fits into the project. So yeah, there has to be, I think, way more support for regulation in inquiry learning, and that's just it's not part of that yet. I read a few papers on that when I taught psychology of classroom learning. So I know even the research will say that students are struggling to do well at that, right? And
you get the odd one that's got it, right? And most likely they've got it through their home, like their parents have worked and with them in that area, or maybe they, I don't know, maybe they just
or there could be some kids, who have a better sense of regulation and are able to kind of manage that and see that, right? But generally,
they can see the big picture and make goals and achieve it. But so many of them, even like you said, even your smartest kids, like my gifted kid, just looks at me like a deer in the headlight. Like, what do you mean? So he doesn't have those skills to manage.
No, exactly, and it's hard to develop those in such a kind of open space, as well as kind of developing that domain knowledge that you want them to be learning through doing that, right? So like, that's a huge, huge task for them.
It's everything. It's the whole self-regulation cycle. Yeah. They just have to like perform.
Yeah. And they're kind of left to just like, here, do it on your own.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's beautiful in theory.
Teachers get a little bit of training in the psych stuff, but really not enough, right? And you learn a lot about kind of the domain knowledge and how do we explain this to them, and how do I get activities so that they learn these things. But understanding the metacognition behind that and how to support their metacognitive thinking, I think, is really critical, especially when you start to do stuff like give them these giant projects where they get to kind of go off on their own, and they're like just wandering around in the dark basically. They have no.
And they're all doing something different, so you can't even support them like in any way. Like you're just.
It's difficult for teachers to see that without understanding, really knowing what regulation is and, where the problems are, because we often see the problems in the strategies. Like, they're not doing a good job at this, right? They're not learning this. I got to change that. But looking back to how is their task understanding and what are the kinds of goals that they're setting will set the stage for making sure that they're more effective in actually learning.
And even if they learn little pieces of that throughout their school career, then hopefully by university they would have some of that, like.
Yeah.
Because like you said, they're coming, they don't have those skills. I feel like it was long past university when I started figuring out some of this stuff. And then now, like, doing all the reading, I'm like, oh, this is why I do this.
We still get students who are just like, they take the course and it's an elective, but they're really, like, not sold on it. But every person I talk to who I tell what I do, and I explain what the course is, and, it's about learning how to learn, and we talk about learning theories, and we talk about, how to, and everybody I know is like, oh my God, that's so important. That's so good. I can't believe you teach that. And I'm like, Yeah, but the students don't see that yet, right? It's not until you're kind of out often in the real world or really struggling through the end of university that you kind of go like, man, I really could have used somebody to tell me that. But then you figured it out on your own through all these mistakes, right?
Or you're being told that you need to teach kids this stuff and you're like, what?
Yeah.
Something's not working. I don't know how to learn. Yeah. And it's even so much more important that the more that knowledge becomes accessible to everybody and everything, and it's just there, it's like, now what do we do?
That's exactly it. Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly it. And that's part of what I'm looking at in my research is kind of how do these processes of learning transfer across different domains and different contexts, right? So I use sport in school, but even within school, right, you'll have some students who are good at kind of regulating and getting stuff in math and not so good at doing that in English, right? And so how do we support the transfer of those processes when you're doing it well in one place and making sure you're doing it well in other places? And it's important for kids who have learned how to learn in school to be able to apply that when they get to a real life job. Right? And so, yeah, those are the processes that are important for people to be learning because knowledge is available everywhere now.
Or we were even saying, like, some of the kids go home and they're quite good at all those skills on Minecraft. Like, they know how to find the information. And, like, maybe starting to look at that. Like, those kids have the skills, but teaching them how to tie that into school. Like, maybe you don't love school quite as much, but you can use those same skills in the classroom.
Exactly. Yeah. So when you run into a challenge, we often see students, like, hit a roadblock, and they're just like, I can't do it, and I don't want to, and I have no motivation for this, and I hate it, and it's like, so what do you do when you run into a problem on Minecraft? You just give up and stop playing the game? No, you figure out a way to make that work.
You contact these people.
Same thing here, right? Yeah. So that's exactly it. Yeah. Okay. But there's not a lot on that yet.
No.
How they transfer across that, and whether that's happening. So.
Yeah. And it's amazing because all the curriculum's just going towards like inquiry learning, like let them go, let them have the freedom and what was the last article I was reading? I can't remember what it was called. It was just talking about how like teachers are all building these constructivist environments and all the kids are like lost. I don't know what to do in them.
But that's exactly it, right? And I mean, there's something to be said, I think, for motivation in terms of inquiry learning and kind of seeing connections between different things rather than like, here's math and here's science and here's this, right? Like, I think that there's some potential benefits there, but the way it's probably being implemented is probably not fantastic for most people, right? And most teachers are going to figure that out really quickly. Like, I let them do this. They're learning nothing. It's chaos in my class, like, right? And you don't like that. You want to kind of structure things. And kids need structure, right? And in order to kind of figure that out, they're not good at structuring things themselves yet.
Yeah.
Right? And you kind of have to scaffold that and figure that out for them. But, yeah. So I think you're absolutely on the right track. Like, the inquiry learning and the regulation, like, they have to happen together.
Yeah.
Right? Inquiry learning is not successful unless students are able to regulate it.